Hey, Jennifer, can you turn your camera and microphone on for a second, just and talk to me a few words so I can make sure it's streaming correctly?
Hey, Dwayne.
Hi.
Cool. Is it working
We
good?
see you. Yeah, we see you.
Yeah, just hang tight.
Yeah, just got want to make sure that it's streaming properly.
I'm going to turn your video on too. Okay. There we go.
All right, thank you so much for testing with us.
You're welcome.
We have a live stream and we are streaming.
All right.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey, James.
Hey, how y'all doing this morning?
Good, Mr. Fontenot.
Pretty good.
See if I can get, here we go. Get my full screen set up. I guess we have a new member joining us today.
Double check.
This is James. I have something wrong with my screen. I've got a screen that says video preview.
Hmm.
We are seeing you fine, Mr. Doris. Are you not seeing us?
I don't see you.
Okay. Can you look down the bottom left and see where it has the options?
Join with video, yeah.
Yeah, you want to click that.
I already did to no avail.
Hmm.
Okay, maybe you could just log out and start it back over. Or we can send you the link to the YouTube and you can watch it on the YouTube. It's a little bit delayed though.
And I will say, Mr. Plaisance and Dwayne, that we did check with Amanda. You can participate without your video legally in the meeting, and we can still administer the oral oath of office. We just will have to arrange for you to do the signing in front of Amanda. So if we can't get video going, we're still covered.
And I've got an X up in the right-hand corner of the screen that I'm looking at, but when I punch it, nothing happens.
Hey, Mr. Doris, this is Dwayne again.
Hey,
If
Dwayne.
you look at the top right, you should see a little view button that you can change the view on the very top right of your Zoom window.
All I see up there is an X.
Okay, a little bit down from that to the left where the black screen is, you should see like a little view button and you can change the view, or you may have
Don't
to
see
scroll
that.
left.
All I've got a rotating wheel on my screen and it says waiting.
Hmm.
Okay,
I don't know why I always seem to have trouble. I attend other Zoom meetings and do not have this kind of problem.
right. Well, we're hearing you fine and we're seeing you fine.
Well, that's fine. I just don't see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Doris, are you on your iPad?
I am.
Okay. And it's still doing the circle thing? It's not showing us?
Nope. That's what it's doing.
And you don't see anything at the very top right where you can change your view?
All I see is an X.
Okay.
I can get out and start over again if you wish.
Ms. Doris, can you scroll left or right to see other videos? See if you can scroll left or right on iPad.
Just grab it and slide left or right.
Nope. Don't move.
Okay, so all you've seen is just a circle right in the middle.
That's it.
Okay.
And an X is top right-hand corner. And I have a screen. I have a.
Yeah,
something.
I mean, if you do want to see it, I think it may be better for him just to drop and then come back real quick.
They do what?
Just drop out and then come back real quick, and then it should.
Just do
reset.
end at the bottom right and then just click on the link again and start it over and it should crank up your camera correctly.
Okay, I'll
It
try
may not
that.
have allowed the video. Good morning, Mary Lou.
Good morning.
Dwayne, can you see me and hear me okay? This is
I
Sharon.
sure do. I sure do. Thank you.
Good morning.
So any idea if we'll be able to resume in person in the next few months?
Staff is working remotely through the end of March, and then we'll
Mhm.
wait and see what happens in April. I think the phase 3 guidelines are a good sign. So we'll see closer in May. And Jennifer and I've already kind of looked to see, because we will have to change rooms if we meet in person. So we've got some different ideas of new parts of the building for you all to see.
Okay, well, this has been working okay, so I was just curious.
Mhm. I know I personally just would love to have an in-person meeting so I could actually, I feel like, truly meet you all.
Right.
I think all we're missing is Mr. Plaisance. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, and there's Victor. I'm going to give him a call just real quick and see.
It looks like we do have one person that has joined us by phone, and I'm not sure who that is. But it could be
Morning,
Mr.
everyone.
Plaisance. Good morning,
Oh,
Victor.
sorry,
This is
this is-
Dwayne. We hear you fine.
Got it. Thank you.
Is, oh, okay, I see the join.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the caller that called in into the call so they can speak. Is that Mr. Plaisance?
Yes, Dwayne, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Are you the one that calls in from the phone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. We have you.
Wonderful. Okay. And Mr. Plaisance, I did mention we will be able to do the virtual or the oral oath of office today, but we'll worry about doing the signing. We'll arrange that later when Amanda is able to watch you sign.
Good. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Fontenot, I believe
Yes,
we can call the meeting to order and we can get to that oath of office.
Okay, I guess before we do that, I need to go ahead and read this script, being that we're going virtual. Before we get started, let me cover a few important points, given that we are holding this as a virtual meeting. As always, our meeting is being streamed online, so please be mindful of that. You are each asked to keep yourselves on mute during the meeting. Please physically raise your hand or make sure that you're acknowledged before you speak. When recognized, unmute yourself. Give a few seconds to allow your comments to be heard, and then please go back to mute after your comments to avoid background noise during the meeting. If you have trouble with your technology at any point, you should have Dwayne's phone number on the first page of the agenda that was sent to you. Please give him a call. We will conduct a roll call for each item, so when your name is called, please be prepared to unmute and verbally have your vote recorded. Pursuant to the notice and instructions for this virtual meeting that were posted along with the agenda, the commission identified 3 ways to submit public comment on any of the items being considered today. The first 2 methods were via email at the address provided or by comment card at the web address provided. Comments submitted during either of these 2 methods were due by 5 p.m. yesterday. The commission did not receive any written comments. The commission will also be prepared to receive public comment by phone or email today during this meeting. The conference telephone number to call is 877-848-5228. 877-848-7030. Again, that's 877-848-7030. The participant PIN number is 339-6187. 339-6187. Public comments can also be emailed to prop.schools@laregents.edu. That's PROP period SCHOOLS at LAREGENTS.edu. Any public comments received will be read during the meeting by staff. You will need to provide your name, the agenda item, and your general comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per comment. Thank you. Do we need to call the meeting officially to order for the,
That's what we did last time. We called it to order, then we did the oath of office.
okay, well, let's go ahead and the meeting is officially called to order. I guess we should do roll call prior to the.
Well, we do the oath of office first so that we can include Mr. Plaisance in the roll call.
All right, we have a new member, Mr. Randy Plaisance. I look forward to getting to meet him as with Mr. Broadwater. He's been a member for a while now. We haven't had an opportunity to meet yet. So with that in mind, Mr. Plaisance, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. If we're prepared to recite the oath of office.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda LeGroux, Assistant Attorney General. I'll be administering the oath. So, Mr. Plaisance, if you just want to repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Randall Plaisance,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent on me
and perform all the duties incumbent on me
as commission member according to the best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, that's it.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome. Look forward to getting to meet you in person.
Y'all too.
Our next item would be a roll call, please.
Melanie Emright,
Here.
Chris Broadwater,
Here.
Sherry Despino,
Here.
James Doris,
Here.
James Fontenot,
Here.
Data Lewis, Carmen Million,
Here.
Mary Lou Potter,
Here. Hi, Randy. Welcome.
Hey, Mary, how are you?
and Randy Plaisance.
Here.
Alright. Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our previous meeting. Everyone should have received them right after the meeting, and then again a copy with the material for this meeting. Any comments?
Move be approved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a move for approval. Do I hear a second? And we have 2 seconds. All in favor, if we do a roll call, please.
Ms. Emright,
Approved.
Mr. Broadwater,
Yes.
Ms. Despino,
Yes.
Mr. Doris,
Yes.
Mr. Fontenot,
Yes.
Ms. Million,
Yes.
Ms. Potter,
Yes.
Mr. Plaisance.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Our next item is the acceptance for the renewal applications, starting on page 7 of the material you receive, starting with Baton Rouge School of Court Reporting, and it proceeds to page 9, I think ending with Tulsa Welding School. Any comments? Or nominations?
I'll move approval.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. If we can do a roll call on a vote, please.
Ms. Amrine,
Approve.
Mr. Broadwater,
Yes.
Ms. Despina,
Yes.
Mr. Doris,
Yes.
Mr. Fontenot,
Yes.
Ms. Million,
Yes.
Ms. Potter,
Yes.
Mr. Plaisance.
Yes.
Wonderful. I noticed that there were 2 non-renewals.
That is correct. Rosemond Phlebotomy School chose to close. They unfortunately had some difficulties with COVID-19. And then Success Prep did not get their renewal materials in time. So staff is working with them to see if they do wish to submit a new application to continue operating.
Okay. Were they able to acquire any initial students, and do they have anybody that's
Staff is working with them to see if they had some students. So we are working to see will we be getting the student records or if they want to continue on.
Great. Thank you. And then we have some program approvals. I think this is for informational purposes only. Doesn't necessarily require a vote, but it is open for discussion. If anybody has any discussions or comments they'd like to include. No? Okay. Our next item is the proposed rule changes to the Louisiana Administrative Code Title 28, Part 3. You should have received this. I guess, Courtney, would you like to make some comments on this for us?
Absolutely. So first to introduce Victor Jones is the Board of Regents Executive Council. So he is on the call to help guide us through this, as well as Kim Kirkpatrick, who is our data guru for planning and committee, our section here. And so they're here if any questions come up during this process that you have, they will help us answer those. After consulting with all legal, we decided that basically we'll just scroll through the sections. I'll do a screen share, so just in case you don't have it in front of you. Also, Amanda had some additional comments after we shared those items with you. So I've made some changes. So you'll be seeing 2 different items, what you received, and then some changes. After we go through these, each section, I'll pause for any questions, comments, and then you can vote to send the rulemaking on to the Board of Regents. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we get started? Okay, let me screen share. So our first change is to Chapter 1. This is a general provision change. The Commission's official name has changed to Advisory Commission on Proprietary Schools. Also, the law that was edited has changed from 17-341 to 340. So you'll see those minor changes throughout. And those are the only changes in Chapter 1. Do we have any questions? Okay. In chapter 3, I don't think we have any changes. These are all about appeals and the pleadings, public hearings. Made no changes there. In chapter 5, so we had changed this to be submitted to Board of Regents, but Amanda pointed out that the law specifies that it needs to actually be submitted, new applications to the commissions or to the commission. So we've made an edit here to say that it is submitted to the commission in the manner as directed by commission staff. This is one of the first changes where we're trying to remove the requirement that everything be mailed as we move forward to try and provide a digital platform for our schools and a relational database for staff. These sort of movements help us in the future so that if someone wants to submit via the digital platform that we put in place, they can. Again, some additional just changes regarding the law. The other change that we've made in section 5 that is more substantive is removing the requirement for the affidavit part of the PSC 9 for instructors and clerical personnel. All directors and school owners would still need to sign and notarize the form, but as it's written now, instructors do not. And we're also removing the need for clerical personnel to submit, as it's not required by law and it is an additional hardship on schools and staff. And again, the other addition to section 5 regards a change of ownership application and just requiring that the bill of sale come to this office, to the commission via commission staff within 10 days of the sale taking place, and that they are required to submit a new application prior to the expiration of their license. Does anyone have any questions on section 5? Okay. Chapter 7. Again, this is us limiting the instructors and office personnel, as well, and removing the need for that submission to us via the PSC 9. And then we're adding in the section of documented evidence of on-the-job training in a subject area taught. This is in the law, and so we're adding this in here to correct the statute to better reflect the law. And again, just a removal of the mailing address and just directing them to submit it to us as needed. Any questions on or comments on chapter 7? Okay. Chapter 9 is about proprietary school applications. So for initial licensure, the only change, we're adding in a section saying institutions seeking an initial licensure shall certify in writing they have the capabilities to annually submit to Board of Regents student level data for each student in the format prescribed by the Board of Regents and the capabilities to electronically store student transcript data. So this is motivated by, we're going to start collecting student level data from schools. So we want to make sure that all new schools know that this is going to be a requirement, as well as it is a requirement via the law that student transcripts be submitted electronically, but it's not something that's been enforced. And so we want to try and make sure that schools have that capability and are storing those records electronically. So if they do unfortunately close, staff can get those records quickly and do not have to go through the time and expense of digitizing those records. You'll see a few other changes in the law that reflect these needs going forward.
Courtney, I have a question.
Absolutely.
As it pertains to submitting this information, is there any requirement that any information that has personal or sensitive information is sent in some type of form that is either encrypted or protected to protect the students' identities and personal information rather?
Absolutely. It will not be written in this code, but as part of the process that staff develops going forward, we are very cognizant of those requirements. Kim Kirkpatrick and her team already work with student level data from our public school systems. So we'll follow the same rules and guidelines that we use with that student data in regards to the proprietary school student data.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I was just wondering, I know a lot of our proprietary schools are very small, and I'm not sure of the digital capabilities that they have. Have you reached out? Have you gotten any feedback from the schools? Will they all be able to provide this information electronically?
So we have talked with the Proprietary School Association, the Louisiana Association of Private Colleges and Schools about this. We haven't reached out to all of our schools yet, but it is going to be open to public comment. And also many of our schools, even smaller ones, already participate in the workforce's ETPL list, and so are already required to submit this data in electronic format. And staff is also prepared to work closely with schools, providing templates for transcripts, whatever we need to help make sure that they can meet this requirement.
I hear what you're saying, but what if they absolutely cannot? Will you make provisions for that?
I think we could possibly make provisions for that and make additional rule changes if we come across that. At this point in time, we recognize that that's a possibility. We're just trying to hope for it not to be a possibility. And where our requirements for electronic are very broad. They're not required to have a specific system in place. It can be a Word file, it can be a PDF. Even the small schools have some sort of computer system where they're keeping their records.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. The other change, it is a new change from what you received for license renewal. And once again, this is just striking mail and adding sent so that we can use digital notification. Here, we're simplifying the verification for bonding companies, removing the original, just as many bonding companies have different rules. So we're trying to ease some of the burden on our schools while they're still meeting the guidelines. This is the same reason that we're moving the example. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I got a message from Kim. And Kim, when I was talking about the Excel versus PDF, that was for the transcripts requirement, not the student level data requirement. Kim had questions about the difference between the Excel requirements.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was going to make sure that the student level file submission at a minimum without any other capabilities could be on an Excel spreadsheet. We just have to have something to separate the fields that are required so that they can be fed into our data system in a specific format. So they can't be embedded into a Word or PDF document. So I just wanted that clarification.
And the bond, the other thing we're striking here is the date requirement. while the law requires that bonds for schools be covered from their entire licensure period. So most of the time it is easier for them to get a rider of continuation to match the dates. We have had multiple pushback from several bonding companies close to renewals for schools. And so this is to make it easier if they would prefer to extend their renewal past their time. So they would basically be covered for 16 months instead of 12, still meeting the requirements, but easing that burden of maybe having to go out and get a new bonding company at the last minute to meet renewal guidelines. And in here as well is more detail about the proof to electronically store student transcript data, and then the institution seeking renewal, the student level data that they will be required. This is all data that we've already been collecting programmatically. Their withdrawal data, the program completion, graduation data, and even some demographic data, but obviously we'll be collecting that now on this student level. And we have done research into other states who are also collecting this sort of data. So this is, we would not be the first ones doing this. This is the type of data that other schools collect as well.
Also data that the public institutions are already collecting and are required to do. So it puts everyone on the same playing field, correct?
Correct. And this allows us to actually count our proprietary schools towards the attainment goals in the master plan. If we don't have this data, we can't compare apples to apples and include them.
And we also hope to use it to address the equity issues across our state. When it's aggregated, we have a difficult time seeing if the race and ethnicity groups, and as you know, the data we prepare for all of our public colleges and universities, we want these schools to participate as well.
Okay. So that is the last change for chapter 9. Do we have any additional comments or questions? All right. Chapter 11 is the Student Protection Fund. There's no changes there. The same for chapter 13 and advertisements. Chapter 15, the violations. Once again, these are just changes to update the law to match. Chapter 17, student complaint procedure. We have made some significant changes here to try and streamline this procedure. We've also made changes in here that say no later than 1 year from the date of the last alleged grievance. This is to protect both schools and students. Schools from having students trying to initiate a complaint after they've exited the school for a significant amount of time, and students to prevent any schools from releasing a student and then saying the student has no grounds for a student complaint because they are no longer a student. In addition to those changes, what's different than what you were sent is a few minor wording changes. Clarification that the copies will be maintained in the commission staff files and that the notice of complaint will be sent to commission staff. The other big change with the student complaint procedure is the removal of the mediation conferences. This was originally done by a state organization that provided this service free of charge. That organization no longer does so. So we were removing that section. Also, from what Chandra has shared with me, historically, mediation conferences rarely, if ever, provided mediation that solved the issue. And often if something proceeded to mediation conferences, it would still end up in front of the commission.
Courtney,
So we
one quick
provided,
question.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, one quick question. This is more of a wordsmithing thing. I see you've deleted C1. We pick up on C2. C2 still references a mediation process. And again, that's more of a wordsmithing. If there's not a mediation conference that's there, I just question whether or not that ought to be redacted. That's more of a wordsmithing issue than anything.
Correct. And so one of the things we tried to add in was that commission staff would provide some sort of mediation between the schools. And I think we left that as is because of that. But
That's correct, Courtney.
yes, okay. Do we have any other questions or comments about that?
Courtney, this is Randall. I have no questions other than if Mr. Broadway would want to expand on that. Do you have a suggestion for any language change regarding mediation?
No, not necessarily, Mr. Brumfield. I was just reading that section there. I assumed that paragraph 2 would now become paragraph 1 since that's been deleted. But seeing that under the heading of mediation conferences, the paragraph that described the mediation conference was now gone, and I must have missed an earlier description. So if you're still having staff provide some of the services to try to achieve resolution, then it makes sense. I would just say we would change paragraph 2 to paragraph 1 and leave the language the same. But if there is no mediation process whatsoever, then I would assume that the 7-day time period running before asking for a hearing before the commission, we would just have to identify when that 7-day period begins to run. That was my only question. But I think Courtney did a good job of describing it, and Victor as well.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. All right. The other item that we struck from here is at this point in time, we decided to strike the commission submitting the parties before the board as well, and move after you make your decision at the commission if it comes before you. If the student still is not satisfied, then they can go forth to the 19th Judicial District. Any other questions? That chapter? Okay. We're almost done, believe it or not. Chapter 19, this is student records. Again, we have just added some clarification on what student records are including, and then clarification on what student records that commission staff are required to keep and maintain, and that focuses on the student transcript. We have historically received a lot more detailed student records, and going back to the student privacy and data concerns that Chair Fontenot brought up in regards to the student data that we're now requesting, we don't wish to maintain some detailed level of the student data for students of closed schools. So we want to maintain student level transcript data, and that's what we want schools to deliver to us, not a student's record in its entirety. Do we have any questions about chapter 19? Okay. No changes to chapter 21, and chapter 23 is the list of forms. Amanda pointed out that we should also remove the language stating the applicant shall complete the following items, as we are removing all of the items from the form in this statute. This is to allow staff to make changes to the forms as needed and be more responsive to any changes that the schools need or that we need to better collect and maintain data for those processes. And those are all of this red strike through in this last section is just listing the forms. And then we added any additional forms or information as identified by the Board of Regents, Commission, or Commission staff. And this is so that we can create new forms if we decide that those are also needed.
On the
Yes.
on the PSC 9, I see that the language the applicant shall complete following items is in red, so I assume it was meant to be struck through as well. But I had the same question once I read so go to number 7 at the bottom of your screen, PSC 9 personnel affidavit. I assume the applicant shall complete the following items. That would be struck through as well. Just
yes, it would.
catch.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Thanks. Great job.
Great catch, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do we have any questions for these changes as a whole or any public comments?
No public comments.
Mr. Chair, I would move we recommend adoption of the rule changes as presented.
We have a motion for acceptance. Do we have a second?
I can second.
We have a motion and a second. And you said there is no public comment. Y'all checked no phone-ins or comments?
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay, so can we do a roll call vote, please?
We can. Ms. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. Broadwater?
Yes.
Ms. Despino?
Yes.
Mr. Doris?
Yes.
Mr. Fontenot?
Yes.
Ms. Millian?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Mr. Plaisance?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Next steps are for this to go to the board at their March meeting. And then it will be available for public comments.
For a period of, go ahead.
Yes.
I was just going to ask the question is, I know that in the past, one of the challenges that the school has always had is that they were required to maintain it. Y'all were required to maintain it on transcript also. I mean, on microfilm rather also. Is that still required?
That is not required.
Thank goodness. Ridiculous. I'm presuming that this, I know over the years they've tried to consolidate a lot of the past information that's been in warehouses forever, and it's been quite costly. So obviously going forward, that should resolve most of those issues, I'm presuming.
Correct. We still have a couple offsite storage facilities, and we are still in the process of digitizing those physical records. And it is time consuming and costly for staff. We do have a contract with Secretary of State where once items are digitized, we will work with them to place these items on microfilm that is archival quality. And then we can dispose of the physical records. So they would be stored in 2 different formats.
So they still do require some microfilming. I mean, some.
That is a Secretary of State requirement for archival records, but it's not a burden on the schools themselves. They do not,
Right.
They are not required.
Somebody's got a state contract to maintain that stuff. It's got to be. Leave it at that. Do we have any other business to discuss?
Staff has no other business. Does the commission?
I have one question, Courtney, and I don't know if maybe this should be brought up after we conclude the meeting, but I know you and I had spoke about a school that was having some challenges on their renewal. Has that been resolved?
They are still within their exemption period to provide the materials to us. They were notified. And so, and this just for the rest of the commission's awareness, because state mail lost their application for several weeks. And so there was no application for us to review in a timely manner. I have also heard from Chandra, historically, this happened once during Hurricane Katrina, and the staff again and the commission made the decision to allow this to pass forward, and they will be considered for renewal at the next commission meeting.
I take it that some of these changes that we're proposing would help resolve that because you could identify if they've received it electronically.
Correct. I have actually this afternoon a meeting with a possible vendor for an electronic system where they get their notifications, they can submit materials, just different elements electronically. And then all that they have to do is mail their check and notarized items. And I've even seen samples of the system in other states where there's a section built in for them to include the tracking number for their shipments. So we expect it to be an expedited process both for staff and for schools when we're able to implement this.
Right. Well, thanks to thanks to the staff for going through all this and making these changes. I know it's been cumbersome, but it's been well overdue.
May I, Mr. Chair, Courtney, just a couple comments.
Please.
I just want to say thanks to the commission for considering these changes. I do want to say that this go to kind of harken back to some comments made earlier by you and Courtney and Kim. You know, what the board seeks to do is to ensure that the work of proprietary schools is indeed acknowledged towards meeting state attainment goals. And the post-secondary credentials of value that schools do deliver across the state should be recognized as part of that effort. So at the end of the day, certainly the changes that you see before you that you have approved for public comment, they lend to efficiency and effectiveness on the process side and efficiency side with the work of the schools and the work of the staff. But I think as important, they lend to the overall effort of the post-secondary education community across the state. So when we think about that, we often think about it in terms of public institutions or private institutions that are regionally accredited. But there are also proprietary schools that are involved with this work that contribute quite a bit, and they do take a heavy lift. So, I think that this commission, should certainly be recognized for the consideration of these changes. But I think moving forward, this work will become even more important as we look to involve them even more with these efforts. So I'll stop there, but I just wanted to share a couple closing remarks with you on that.
Thank you. Mr. Broadwater?
And just to add to what Mr. Brookfield was just saying, I think there's also an opportunity by Regents being able to retain these transcripts for a number of these students who will then go on to our private schools and our public schools to be able to verify those earlier transcripts and give credit for prior learning and help move them along for additional credentials to help them in employment. So having Board of Regents serving as that host that is able to retain that data is going to be a big help for those students that move across other institutions. So thank you for your good work on that.
Absolutely. Any other comments from anyone on this? All right. Well, again, we appreciate all y'all's hard work and appreciate everybody being here today to go over this important information and make this move. If there's no other information or comments, meeting is adjourned. Thank you again. Everyone have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.